The knocking started on January 8, 1976 at 2:17 a.m. Slow, deliberate, heavy enough to shake snow from my roof. I was 51 years old, alone in my hunting cabin deep in the Wyoming wilderness, and I knew, with absolute certainty that made my blood run cold, who was at my door, or rather, what. 8 months earlier, in May 1975, I'd been hunting elk when I saw something moving through the trees. Something huge, something that shouldn't exist. I'd raised my rifle, fired twice, saw it stumble, saw blood, then watched it disappear into the forest. I'd tracked the blood for an hour before losing the trail. Told myself it was a bear. Had to be a bear. But I knew. I'd seen the face in my scope, seen the intelligence in those eyes, seen something human looking back at me. Now it was winter. The worst blizzard in 20 years had cut me off from civilization. No way out for weeks, and something was at my door in the middle of the night, knocking, patient, persistent, waiting for me to answer. I'd shot it 8 months ago. Now it had found me, and I had no idea if it had come for revenge or something else entirely. My name is William Harper. I'm 75 years old now. This story is about the worst thing I ever did, and about the mercy I didn't deserve but received anyway, about judgment and forgiveness from a species we don't acknowledge exists, and about how one moment of violence can lead to a lifetime of redemption if you're brave enough to face what you've done. May 1975. I was 50 years old, had been hunting for 40 years, started with my father when I was 10. Hunting was in my blood. It was identity. It was tradition. It was how I understood myself and my place in the world. I was good at it. Tracked elk, deer, bear, mountain lion, legal hunts, ethical kills. I told myself I respected the animals, respected the wilderness. But looking back, I'm not sure I did. I think I just loved the power, the dominance, the moment when my skill meant life or death for something else. May 23, 1975. I was on a solo elk hunt in the Absaroka Mountains of Wyoming, remote area, no trails, no other hunters, just me and the wilderness, perfect conditions. I'd been tracking a bull elk for 2 days, big one, trophy quality. I was getting close, could smell him, could see fresh tracks, could feel that hunter's instinct that says, today's the day. I was moving through dense forest, Douglas fir, heavy undergrowth, visibility maybe 30 yards. Then I heard movement ahead, large, heavy, breaking branches. Had to be the elk, had to be. I raised my rifle, scoped the area, waited. Movement again, closer. I positioned myself, controlled my breathing, finger on trigger. Ready. Then it stepped into view, and my brain couldn't process what I saw. Not an elk, not any animal I knew. Bipedal, massive, maybe 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown fur, moving through the forest with surprising quiet for something that size. And as I watched through my scope, it turned, looked in my direction, and I saw the face. Human, not quite human, but close. Too close. Intelligent eyes, awareness, consciousness, looking around like it was searching for something, cautious, alert, alive in a way that felt different from animals I'd hunted. My rational mind screamed, impossible. Doesn't exist. You're seeing things. But my eyes knew what they saw. Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the creature from stories, from legends, standing 40 yards away. Real, undeniable, impossible, but real. And in that moment, in that split second, I made the worst decision of my life. Instead of lowering my rifle, instead of backing away, instead of acknowledging I was seeing something extraordinary that deserved respect and distance. I thought, nobody will believe this. Nobody will believe I saw one unless I have proof, unless I bring back a body. I aimed, center mass, just like I'd been taught. Exhaled, squeezed the trigger. The shot echoed through the forest. The creature jerked, stumbled, made a sound, pain and shock combined. A sound that was too human, too aware, too much like someone who'd just been hurt and couldn't understand why. I fired again, hit it in the shoulder. It fell to one knee, looked directly at me, and the expression, the absolute confusion and betrayal in those eyes, it froze me. This wasn't an animal. This was someone. Someone who'd been attacked for no reason. Someone who'd done nothing except exist in its own forest. Then it ran. Despite the wounds, despite the blood I could see, it ran, crashed through the undergrowth, disappeared into dense forest within seconds, moving with speed and agility that seemed impossible for something wounded. I stood there shaking, rifle still raised, adrenaline crashing through my system, and slowly, horribly, reality set in. I'd just shot something, someone. I'd shot at another thinking being without provocation, without reason. Just because I wanted proof, wanted validation, wanted to be the man who killed a Bigfoot, I started tracking, following the blood trail. Heavy drops at first, then lighter, then sporadic. The creature was moving fast, covering ground despite being wounded. I tracked for an hour, 2 hours. The blood trail got harder to follow, then disappeared entirely. Either the wounds weren't as serious as I thought, or it had stopped bleeding, or I'd lost the trail. Regardless, it was gone. I returned to my camp, packed up, hiked out, drove home, and tried to forget. Tried to convince myself it had been a bear, that in the moment, in the adrenaline, I'd misidentified what I'd seen, that the human-like features were my imagination, that I hadn't just done something unforgivable. But I knew. Every night for 8 months, I knew, saw those eyes in my dreams, that expression of betrayal, that sound it made. I'd hurt something, someone, for no reason except ego, and I couldn't take it back. Then came winter. I returned to Wyoming in December 1975 for a planned month-long stay at my remote hunting cabin. The cabin was 40 miles from the nearest town, accessible only by snowmobile in winter. I'd stocked it in fall, had enough supplies for 6 weeks, planned to do some winter hunting, clear my head, find peace. The blizzard hit January 6, 1976. The Weather Service was calling it the worst storm in 2 decades, 3 feet of snow in 24 hours, wind gusts over 60 mph, whiteout conditions, total isolation. My snowmobile was buried, no way out. Radio said the storm would last a week minimum, maybe 2. I was trapped. But I had supplies, had firewood, had shelter, would just wait it out. The knocking started the second night of the storm, January 8th, 2:17 a.m. I woke from restless sleep to the sound. Boom, boom, boom! 3 heavy strikes on my door, shaking the frame, shaking the walls, way too powerful to be wind or falling ice. I sat up, heart racing, grabbed my rifle, always within reach. "Who's there?" I called. My voice shaky, already knowing no human would be out in this storm. No human could be out in this storm. Silence, then 3 more knocks. Slower, more deliberate. Almost patient, like someone was saying, "I'm not leaving. Open the door." I approached cautiously. My cabin was small, 12 by 16 feet. The door was 6 feet from my bed, heavy wood, reinforced. But whoever, whatever, was out there had the power to break through if it wanted. I looked through the small window next to the door. Couldn't see anything, snow and darkness, but I heard breathing, heavy, right outside. Something large was there, waiting. "What do you want?" I called. A sound in response, low, rumbling. Not quite a growl, not quite speech, but clearly communication. Clearly intentional, and horribly familiar. I'd heard that sound 8 months ago, when I'd shot it. My hands started shaking. It had found me, after 8 months. Through miles of wilderness, through the worst blizzard in decades, it had tracked me, found where I lived, and now it was here. During a storm that meant no help was coming, no escape was possible. Just me and it, alone in the wilderness. I had my rifle, could shoot through the door, could try to kill it. Finish what I'd started in May, but looking at that door, knowing what was on the other side, I couldn't shoot again, couldn't add more violence, couldn't make this worse. I did something that terrified me but felt necessary. I unbolted the door, put down my rifle, and opened it. The creature stood on my porch, massive, 8 feet tall, maybe more, covered in snow-crusted dark brown fur. And I recognized it. The same build, the same features. The creature I'd shot 8 months ago. It had found me. We stared at each other, me in my doorway, it on my porch, snow whipping around us, wind howling, and I waited for it to attack, to take revenge, to do to me what I'd done to it. But it didn't. It just stood there, looking at me, studying me, and then it raised one massive arm, pulled back the fur on its shoulder, and showed me the scar, puckered tissue, healed but visible, where my bullet had hit, evidence of what I'd done. "I'm sorry," I whispered, tears starting in my eyes. "I'm so sorry. I don't know why I did it. I was wrong. I was so wrong." The creature lowered its arm, made a sound, different from before, softer, then gestured, to itself, to me, to the storm. And I understood. It wasn't here for revenge. It was here for something else. Shelter, help. The storm was too severe. Even it couldn't survive out there. It needed refuge. And it had come to the man who'd hurt it. Because I was the only human it knew in this wilderness, the only one it had any connection to, however terrible. I stepped aside. "Come in, please, come in." It hesitated, looked at me, assessing, deciding. Could it trust the human who'd shot it? Could it trust me not to hurt it again? I held up my hands, empty, peaceful. "I won't hurt you, I promise, please. Come in from the storm." It ducked through my doorway, barely fit. Had to crouch and turn sideways. But it came in, into my cabin, brought snow and cold with it, filled the entire space with its presence, and stood there in my home, shivering from cold, covered in ice, exhausted. I closed the door. The wind immediately lessened. The temperature inside was maybe 50 degrees, cold by human standards but tropical compared to the -20 outside. The creature stood near my wood stove, drawn to the heat. I added more wood, built up the fire. The warmth increased. "Sit," I said. Gestured to the floor. My furniture was too small. "Warm up. I'll get you food." It sat, slowly, carefully, watching me constantly, ready to defend itself if I attacked, but willing to trust just enough to accept shelter. I made food. I had canned stew, bread, dried meat. I heated the stew, offered it. The creature took it, ate carefully, methodically. Still watching me, still wary, but accepting the offering. We spent that night in my cabin together, predator and prey, reversed. The thing I'd hurt taking shelter with me because it had no choice. The storm raged outside. Inside, silence, tension, fear on both sides, but also something else. Truce, necessity, shared survival. Over the following days, as the storm continued, we developed a routine, an uneasy coexistence that slowly, impossibly, became something like companionship. Day 1 was pure tension. We occupied opposite sides of my small cabin. I stayed near the door and stove. He stayed near the back wall. We watched each other constantly. Every movement was calculated, every gesture careful. I was terrified. He was wary, both of us trapped together by necessity and weather. I made food that first morning, canned stew heated on my wood stove. The smell filled the cabin. I ate half, offered the rest, set it on the floor between us, backed away. He watched for a long time, testing. Is this poisoned? Is this a trap? Finally approached, sniffed it, tasted it cautiously, then ate it all, fast, hungry. He'd been in that storm, probably hadn't eaten in days. By day 2, the tension had lessened slightly. I woke to find he'd added wood to the fire during the night, had kept it going while I slept, protected us both from the cold. When I gestured thanks, he made a sound. Acknowledgement. You're welcome. We're in this together. I tried to communicate. "My name is William," I said, pointing to myself, repeated it several times. He watched, listened, then made a sound, low, rumbling, complex vocalization that lasted 3 seconds. His name, I realized. I tried to repeat it, failed miserably. My throat couldn't produce those sounds. He made a sound that I swear was amusement. Tried to simplify it for me. A shorter version, still too complex. I settled on calling him Bear. In my mind, strong, powerful, but gentler than you'd expect. On the 3rd day, breakthrough happened. I was organizing my firewood, pulling logs from the porch, stacking them inside. Heavy work. My 51-year-old back was complaining. Bear watched for a while, then stood, walked to the door. I froze. Was he leaving? But no. He opened the door himself, had watched me do it enough times to understand the latch, went outside, came back carrying 4 logs at once. Logs I could barely carry one at a time, stacked them neatly, went back for more. He was helping, voluntarily helping, not because I asked, because he saw I was struggling, because we were sharing this space, because despite everything, he was showing me kindness I hadn't shown him. "Thank you," I said, my voice breaking. He looked at me, tilted his head, made a soft sound, then continued working. By the time he finished, we had a week's worth of firewood inside. My back was grateful. My soul was devastated by the undeserved kindness. Day 4, I found the courage to address the wound. I'd been avoiding it, afraid to touch him, afraid he'd remember fully what I'd done. But I had medical supplies, had antibiotics, had scar treatment. I approached slowly, first aid kit in hand, pointed to his shoulder, to the visible scar tissue, made apologetic sounds, made pleading gestures. "Please, let me help. Let me try to fix what I broke." He watched my face, reading my expression, seeing genuine remorse, genuine desire to help, then slowly, remarkably, pulled back the fur on his shoulder, exposed the wound site fully, giving me permission, trusting me despite having every reason not to. I worked carefully. The scar was about 3 inches across, puckered. The skin beneath the fur had healed, but poorly. My bullet had torn through muscle. He'd somehow survived, somehow healed without infection or medical care. The resilience was incredible. I cleaned the area gently, applied antibiotic ointment, massaged in vitamin E for scar tissue. He flinched once, made a pain sound, but didn't pull away. Endured it. Let me work. When I finished, he touched the area, felt the ointment, made a questioning sound. "It'll help," I explained, knowing he couldn't understand words but hoping he'd understand intent. "Make it heal better, hurt less." He made a sound, softer, then did something that broke me, touched my shoulder, gently, the same spot, mirroring the wound I'd given him, not aggressive, not threatening, connecting. "You hurt me here. I feel your regret. I acknowledge it." By day 5, we'd settled into something remarkable. We'd move around the cabin comfortably, share space, share food. I'd cook. He'd bring firewood or water from melted snow. We'd sit by the fire together. I'd read aloud from books. He seemed to enjoy the sound even if he couldn't understand words. He'd make sounds back, long vocalizations that felt like stories, like he was sharing something about his world, his people, his life. I learned things. He was remarkably clean. Would go outside even in the storm to relieve himself. Would brush snow off before coming back in. Would keep his space organized. Intelligence and awareness in every action. This wasn't an animal. This was a person, with habits, with preferences, with dignity. He learned things about me too. Learned I moved slow in the mornings, bad knee. Started having the fire built up and coffee water heating before I woke. Learned I ate at specific times. Would gesture toward the stove when it was time. Learned I was afraid of him. Would back away when he stood quickly. Started moving slower, making himself smaller, less threatening. Accommodating my fear even though he was the wounded one, even though he had more right to fear me. Day 6, the storm was still raging, but we barely noticed. We'd become comfortable. I showed him photographs from my wallet. My wife who'd died 3 years before. My parents, my hunting trophies. I showed him that last one with shame. All the animals I'd killed, the pride I'd felt, the man I'd been. He looked at each photo carefully, studied them. When he got to the hunting photos, he made a sound. Not angry, sad, disappointed. Understanding that this was who I'd been, who I still was when I'd shot him. I put the photos away. I'm not that man anymore, I said, or I'm trying not to be. What I did to you, I can't take it back, but I can be different. I can be better. He looked at me for a long time, then made a sound. Low, approving, forgiving, acknowledging the attempt at redemption, even if the deed couldn't be undone? The storm finally broke on day 7, January 15th. We both knew immediately. The howling wind stopped. The cabin stopped shaking. Silence, profound silence. It was over. The creature stood, looked outside, looked at me. It was time to go. It could survive out there now, didn't need my shelter anymore. But before it left, it did something that changed me forever. It approached, stood right in front of me, and slowly, deliberately, touched my shoulder, right where I'd touched it scar days before. A mirror gesture, an acknowledgement. You hurt me, but you also helped me. We're even now. The debt is balanced. Then it walked out into the snow, turned back once, made a sound, goodbye maybe, or thank you, or acknowledgement, and disappeared into the forest. I stood in my doorway crying. This creature, this being I'd shot without cause, had forgiven me, had come to me in need, had trusted me despite what I'd done, had shown me more humanity than I'd shown it. That was 49 years ago. I'm 75 now. I never hunted again after that winter. Couldn't. Every time I thought about raising my rifle at any living thing, I saw those eyes, that expression of betrayal, that wound I'd caused. I became a wildlife photographer instead, spent the next 40 years documenting animals instead of killing them, making amends through images instead of trophies. It wasn't enough, could never be enough, but it was what I could do. I never saw that creature again, but I carry it with me every day, the worst thing I ever did, and the greatest mercy I ever received. The reminder that violence is easy and forgiveness is hard, that judgment can come from unexpected places, and that sometimes the ones we wrong have more grace than we deserve. I shot at a creature in the forest in 1975. The next winter, it came looking for me, not for revenge, for survival. And in choosing to help it, to make some small amends, I found a path toward redemption I never expected, toward becoming someone better than the man who pulled that trigger. I still have nightmares about that moment. The shot, the sound it made, the betrayal in its eyes. But I also dream about that gesture, the touch on my shoulder, the forgiveness I didn't deserve but received anyway. The grace shown by a being we call primitive, who was more human than I was in my worst moment. That's my story, my shame, my redemption, shared now because I'm old and won't be here much longer, because it deserves to be told, because others need to know that we're capable of terrible things, but also that forgiveness is possible, even from those we've wronged most deeply, even across species, even when we don't deserve it.